Review Committee meeting will now come to order.
Good afternoon. Due to the governor's order, all members of the Community Investments Review Committee are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. At that time, they will be recognized and will be unmuted. Today's meeting is a public meeting. The meeting will also be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel, which can be accessed at www.cityofws.org/2682/video.
Okay. It is indeed a pleasure for me to welcome each and every one of you. On behalf of Vice Chair Kenneth Pettigrew, Letitia Tony, Budget Director, and myself. And now we'll have the roll call.
Chair Claudette Bailey.
Here.
Kenneth Pettigrew, Vice Chair.
Present.
Greg Byer.
Present.
Kanika Brown.
Present.
Brown. Okay.
Present. Sorry, I had it on mute.
Okay, I need to say the ward, Southeast Ward. Dr. Joshua Canzona from South Ward is unable to attend today. Philip Curtola, Northeast Ward.
Sam Hickerson is taking Philip's place.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Thank you, Sam. Sam Hickerson, Northeast Ward.
Present.
Damon Davenport, North Ward.
Present.
Frankie Gist at large. Dr. Militia Witt Glover, South Ward. London McKinney, East Ward.
Present.
Debbie Hunter, West Ward, she's unable to attend today. Francis Pimentel Peralta, Southwest Ward. Walter Rennie Pitt Jr., West Ward.
I'm here.
Gracia Centillion, Northeast Ward. Quamika Shavers, Southwest Ward.
Present.
Charlene Simmons, Southeast Ward. Christy Robinson, Northwest Ward.
Present.
And Kiana Taylor at large.
Okay.
That ends the roll call.
Right. Has everyone had a chance to review the meetings from July 30th? If so, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So approved. So approved. Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. With that, the minutes have been approved.
Patrice,
Yes.
this is Ben Rao, Assistant City Manager. They need to do a roll call vote to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Can we have a roll call vote to approve the minutes?
All right. Claudette Bailey.
Aye.
Kenneth Pettigrew.
Aye.
Greg Byer.
Aye.
Kanika Brown.
Aye.
Sam Hickerson.
Aye.
Damon Davenport.
Aye.
London McKinney.
Aye.
Francis Peralta.
Aye.
Rennie Pitt.
Aye.
Quamika Shavers.
Aye.
Christy Robinson.
Aye.
And the others are absent.
Okay. The minutes have been unanimously approved. Now we'll go for the review submitted project ideas.
Okay, thank you, Chairwoman Bailey. As you all know, that we solicited for project ideas from the committee that was due on August the 10th. On your agenda, you'll see a list of titles of projects that were received. But we're going to extend that because we really want to hear at least from one representative from every ward. So today we will review some of those project ideas. But before we get into that, we have Council Member James Taylor, and he is interested in sharing some of his ideas for how the funds should be utilized for this committee. So please give him your attention and take notes. And if there's a committee member that wants to kind of elaborate and take on his idea as a project, we can explore that later. Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Tony. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I want to thank everyone, first of all, for being on this Zoom call and for the work that you're doing for the city of Winston-Salem. I know sometimes it's a labor of love to be away from your jobs and away from your families in order to do this work. So I want to personally start with saying thank you for stepping up and hearing and answering the call to service. Many of you are here because you're involved. And if you've been involved, you've been following the news, you'll know that the city of Winston-Salem lately has experienced an increase in gun violence. And, you know, if you're looking at the papers, there have been over 100 people shot. And there are people in this community who are looking to us to figure out ways on how we can solve gun violence in the city of Winston-Salem. So what we're looking to do from a public safety perspective is to comprehensively look at gun violence in the city and put together a neighborhood plan to address that gun violence. Sure, we all have ideas on how we believe money should be spent and strategies should be implemented. But I think it's smart for us to put together neighborhood teams, go into communities and ask them what they need in order to be successful. So when you go into these communities, they may say they need law enforcement, they may say they need programming and strategies, or they may say there are programs that need funding. I'm just asking for the committee's direction on how we should move. I do know that we have a focus and a theme around reducing poverty in the city of Winston-Salem, but I'm hoping that this committee would see the value in how things are changing in the city of Winston-Salem and look to partner with us to shift our focus to also include gun violence and working on ways on how to address that gun violence in the city of Winston-Salem. So I'll pause and see if there's anyone who has any questions, suggestions, but I'm hoping that you just give us a little bit of extra time in conjunction with your suggestions, allow us to go into the community, put these teams together, find out what they need, and implement those with the help of the Community Investments Review Committee.
May I speak?
Please, if you just give me your name so I'll know who it is, and I definitely want to hear from you.
This is Q. How are you?
Chavis, I'm doing well. I hope you are.
I'm fine, thank you. I have received this message a million times via text message, inbox, and how are we going to address this? And is this a part of the plan? And it is honestly not one real answer, because if we structure more public safety in certain communities, then we're over policing. People are also saying that programming isn't effective because programming has been in place prior to now, and violence has still increased. As we both know, the victims are becoming younger and younger, and some of them are just unfortunately in their own neighborhoods, but named in the wrong place at the wrong time. The only ideas that I can honestly think about is because of the pipeline of school to the prison system, and also gang violence, gang interaction, and things of that nature. Is the first issue is of poverty. That's the first issue, because a lot of this stuff is not only gang related, but it's also drug related.
Yes,
and if we focus on those two big issues in the African American community, possibly we can decrease violence, gun violence.
Hey, I want you to hear James Taylor is on our
I'm sorry?
Okay, so.
London, if you can mute your call. I'm sorry, Councilmember Taylor.
Ms. Chavis, have you finished your comments? Because I definitely want to respond, but I want to make sure you can hear adequately.
So I think we need to couple programming with also more, and I can't say that they haven't been trying, because I know on the sheriff department side, they have definitely participated in a lot of community engagement. And it's really going to take some time about building those relationships to where police presence in certain communities doesn't seem like a slap in the face or over policing. I do think that presence still needs to be there, but in a way that we're not deeming that we're over policing African American communities and therefore putting them at a higher rate of some type of police brutality or police injustice. Somehow we have to find a balance in that and also utilize programming. You know, putting money back into these communities that are clearly over, like they're just very impoverished.
Well,
like putting money back into these communities.
Ms. Shavers, there are two schools of thought that I'm hearing right now, particularly on the council. One school of thought is that we should go very heavily with law and order and go into communities and kick butt and take names. The other school of thought is we should go into those very same communities, ask the neighbors what they want and what they need, and create programming that will be instrumental in getting them out of the situations they're in. And I'm willing to lead these teams in certain communities, and we're asking that other council members and other community leaders are willing to lead those teams as well. So my answer would be several things can be true at the same time. We can want to try to reduce poverty, we can want to try to reduce crime, and we can want to try to fight gun violence. My strategy is not for us to come up with ideas and tell them what they need, but let's do what we did when we created the SOAR program. The SOAR program is a program that works with former offenders. We had a Stop the Violence rally, and they said to us, Mr. Taylor, we have felonies, we have misdemeanors. We're going to need somewhere to work. We're going to need benefits to feed our families. And SOAR has been successful because we heard the needs of the people. We took it to the community. And now what I'm saying is, hey, let's take it to the people. Let's take it to the community again and find out what they need. And let us not think that we are smarter than the people who we serve or represent. So I think everybody's saying the same thing. And I think you agree with Ms. Shavers. We've got to do something. But I'm asking this committee to just give us a little time, hear what the neighbors are wanting and needing. And let's try to comprehensively put a plan together, including law enforcement, if needed, to go into communities and make a difference.
I agree. I agree. I think it's going to take a
I agree completely.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes, ma'am.
This is I'm sorry. This is London McKinney, and Ms. Taylor, you and I both. I think our friendship started over 10 years ago down in Rolling Hills.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know firsthand, living right across the street from Rolling Hills, the problems that has plagued that area. I'm sorry, I'm having to step away from another meeting, but
okay.
I wanted to share this with you. I hear you, what you're saying, not to go in and police, that area heavily. Also,
I see your point. I'm not quite saying that, but I do see your point for the sake of the conversation.
Okay. Because for me, to be in my home, hear the gunfire, waking up by the gunfire, there's been more incidents in that neighborhood alone, that community alone, that something has to be done, because to continue to ignore it, to me, it gives power to the gangs. And to hear that in our city, we have over 80 gangs, Crips, Bloods, and these hybrid gangs, a quick solution. We need a solution. And it's not something that we can continue to wait on, because this gang issue or the gunfire issue just in Rolling Hills alone has been going on for the past 4 months. And I wasn't hearing from anybody, any of the community leaders. And that was appalling to me, because it's like, who do we turn to? Well, so something has to be done. Something has to be done. And it's not something that we can wait on for another death. The young man that died 2 hours after your meeting on Monday, I happen to know that family. I grew up with that family. And it's heartbreaking to know that that's something that's hit close to home for me. And then here, 2 more days later, a 15-year-old. I mean, what is it going to take before we actually put something in place to even start to bring a close to some of this gun violence that's going on?
Ms. McKinney, I think the truth of the matter is, if 2 people have a disagreement, there's nothing that the city council or the police department can do to help those 2 people solve that agreement. But we do have to go out and be proactive to try to prevent that stuff from happening. You mentioned that 10 years ago, you and I met in Rolling Hills We went into the community, we asked the neighbors what they needed, and we actually worked to put a plan together to address it. And for a little bit of time, it actually worked. I am chairman of public safety for the city of Winston-Salem, and I take responsibility for that. But I think that there are other folks who should be at the table having these conversations. So I don't represent your ward directly on the city council. However, I am looking to try to put together, in conjunction with my colleagues in the community and on the council, a plan to address the issue. So I do agree, something needs to be done. I'm not suggesting inactivity, but I'm saying the answer is not to militarize law enforcement and send them into communities of color and kick butt and take names. I'm not saying people are saying that. I'm just telling you what is not the answer. Now, my experience is based on being born and reared in the community I represent, actually been a neighborhood young man. I've served with the Boys and Girls Club. I've served for the Department of Juvenile Justice. I've served running a juvenile drug treatment court. So I feel, based off my experiences and based off my experiences of working in my community and living in my community, that I should have a say. And I feel like you should have a say. Those folks on this committee should have a say. And together, when we come together with these types of solutions, we can solve the problems. We didn't create gun violence in Rolling Hills overnight. It's been that way for a long time. So that tells us we can't police our way out of this. We have to create programs.
Well, it's escalating. I would tell you that it's escalating, because for the owners in that area, for the owners for Rolling Hills not to be more active than what they do, it's sad when you hear the residents down there say that the people turn a blind eye to the drugs that's going on, the gun violence that's going on there. The security even leaves from down there when there's trouble about to happen. That, within itself is a problem with the owners that the owners need to figure out as well. But,
there is action being taken specifically against Rolling Hills. I don't want to make this about Rolling Hills. I just want to say there are several other communities that need the same attention as Rolling Hills, some of them in the areas that I represent. Yeah. We will address them together. So you are correct. Okay. Neighbors, you are correct. We will put together an immediate plan to go into these neighborhoods. But just know, once we do that, we're going to depend on the leadership of the Community Investments Review Committee in order to fund some of the initiatives that the neighbors say that they need most. And we're going to go into Rolling Hills, and I will lead the team into Rolling Hills. I'm not going to sit back and point fingers. I'm going to lead. And I'm hoping that I can count on you to help to lead in that community and many others.
Well, I ask you this. Join us on the 23rd. There's an organization, Neighbors Against Gun Violence. We are going to be protesting in these areas where we see gun violence, and we need the support of the city council to be there with us. We need leaders, all the leaders in Winston-Salem, to show up with us, because if they think that the neighbors do not care or the community do not care, why should they care? I challenge everybody on this call to go and find the incident that took place in June when the police department went down in Rolling Hills. It was a fight that broke out. The people stopped the fighting and turned to the police. They were against the police, just like in an instant. There are so many videos out there about what is taking place down in Rolling Hills, the fights, the gunshots and everything. And I know, James, you've said that it's not about Rolling Hills, but that shows an example of the gun violence that we are having here. And then when you hear that there is a gang turf war, I'm on the street right behind where this turf war is taking place. That's just part of it. It's going to continue to grow. My neighborhood today, but it may be yours tomorrow. And that's for everybody on this call, because it's growing. It's starting to grow, not just here in the East Ward, not just in your ward or the Northeast Ward. It's starting to grow throughout the city.
So I'll conclude by saying I have heard you loud and clear, and just know that the city will do what we can to direct our energy and our resources towards solving this problem. We've already done it, and we're going to do a better job of it. And so at some point in time, we all have to draw the line and say, no more. And sending in the police alone won't do it. Funding programs alone won't do it. But a combination on all of our options are the way to move forward here. So I think we are in agreement, and hopefully you'll be ready to support when called upon, and as well, I will be also.
So, well, on next Tuesday, I think it's the 18th, at the Benton Convention Center, the Northeast Ward and the East Ward has come together with the Sheriff Department, the Police Department, state representatives, for social service, and even CURE is at the table, even with the city commissioners. to talk about this. Will you join us? Because I think your voice needs to be heard as well.
To say to you today that I will be at a certain time and date that I have not researched is certainly unfair to anybody. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I can be there, I will. But even if I can't be there after checking my calendar, because I do have other obligations, I'm willing to and committed to working with you. I've already spoken with the leaders of the organizations you've mentioned, and they all want to be at the table. So if I can't make it, I am saying yes, I'm committed to finding solutions with the groups that you've just indicated.
Okay, so just
I would hope that we all could be united.
I definitely have some comments that I would like to make, and I want to make sure that they're on the record because they come with a little bit of concern. So the first thing I want to say is that one of the challenges, and someone shared this who does work with gun violence, that one of the things that we definitely need to consider when thinking about that is that we actually need to consider declaring a state of emergency as a public health crisis. That is a public health crisis around the issue of gun violence here in Forsyth County, which is something that, of course, a partnership between the city and the county would be something that we would have to do. But on the other side of this, I have a few concerns. And I named these, have a few concerns now about the autonomy of this committee to be able to make decisions based upon now having received a direct request and recommendation from a council member. It's not so much a critique of the recommendation as it is, I think, very possibly a critique of the process by which the recommendation has been received, that this committee has been charged to make a decision and has been selected by council and then ultimately entrusted by the citizens of Winston-Salem to make the best informed decisions we can about what to do with this funding based upon whatever recommendations we may garner from our community to bring to this table. And so I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that we just received a recommendation directly from council, and have some hesitation about considering that recommendation when it comes, not because I don't think it's a valid issue that we need to address, but because the collecting of the work that led to this recommendation was led by a member of council versus it actually being done either by members of this committee or being suggested by members of the community directly.
So if I may, Mr. Pettigrew,
I wanted to name that. I just wanted to name that for me as an issue. And yeah, I think that's kind of the full extent of my comment there.
Your words have not fallen on deaf ears. I do understand your perspective, but I want you to know that as the facts change, so does our opinions. I know that a 10-year-old boy, a 9-year-old boy, 2 14-year-old young folks, we have young folks in this community who are dying and being shot yesterday, the day before that, and it's happening. So as the facts change, so does my opinion. Now, this committee has complete autonomy. And by the way, Councilmember Bessie and I actually conceptualized forming the committee. That's where it came from, and the council supported it. So I am at liberty to say that this committee does have autonomy to move how you feel it needs to move. But I think that whether you're elected official or whether you're a member of the community, we both agree on this. It's difficult to speak for the people who we are representing today without going to them and asking them what they need. So I'm saying several things, again, can be true at the same time. Your recommendations are well warranted and wanted. And I think we're going to do our best to implement those. But I think it's incumbent upon us to back up a little bit, assess what's happening in our city, go to the people that it's happening to, and ask how they feel that we can spend this money best. But I do respect your point of view, but I'm not speaking for me.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with your point about opinion needing to change. I'm talking about process, and that's my concern. That if there is going to be a collection of information from the community, I am more comfortable with the recommendations directly coming from community versus them being filtered through a council person. That is because I do not want there to be the appearance of favoritism or intimidation because of how the recommendations arrived at our table. That is my concern.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in right quick just to kind of bring this to some closure. First of all, thank you, Councilmember Taylor, for your suggestion about and bringing up some new issues related to gun violence and the possibility of developing neighborhood teams. So the committee at this point has heard the recommendations from Councilmember Taylor. At this point, any committee member can piggyback on that idea and fully develop it and submit it as a formal recommendation among all the other recommendations that we have heard from the committee. So if any member is interested in kind of elaborating on what he has presented, we will definitely look at that, submit it on the Google form that I sent, and then we will review it and discuss it further. So I know Councilmember Taylor had another engagement, and so he wanted to come on and give this idea. There are new issues that are rising up in our community. Obviously, gun violence is one of them, and so we're glad to hear that. And if there's any way this committee can support or look at that effort as one of their recommendations in their final report to council, we will definitely discuss that further. So I just want to kind of draw some conclusions because some of you all submitted some great project ideas, and I want to make sure that we can review some of those ideas as well.
Ms. Tony, is the problem gun violence or the gangs?
Both.
Okay, but I mean, what does it stem from? I think if the gang situation is addressed,
Poverty.
Okay, that also, that would be the means of addressing the gun violence.
Right. If you can make the core root of gun violence or the formation of gangs, the core root is poverty, yes, I think you can definitely develop a proposal based on that and tie it back to poverty. Okay, or any other
I would
comments on this? Yeah.
I would just like to say this very briefly, is that because I'm out in the community doing voter registration, which I adore doing, and absentee ballot, and just giving out facial masks to the community that are reusable, the ones that they can wash, because many of them in the areas that I serve are, they don't have readily access to facial masks they can reuse. I talk to them, and this is a huge issue for them, and I struggle trying to come up with ideas of how we can attack this without feeling like we are also doing something that is against the communities that these issues are taking place in. And I really think that if we keep an open mind and that we understand that more than one tactic is going to have to be used here, that it's not just going to be programming, it's not just going to be law enforcement involvement,
Exactly.
that it's going to be several different ideas. So I hope that we can come together as a board, and all of our great minds, we put together several different ways of how to attack gun violence and gang activity in our community, because it's going to take several, it's going to be a multifaceted idea. It's not just going to be one idea and that's going to eradicate this issue, because it's just not how it works.
Agreed.
Any last comments about this one proposal related to gun violence and neighborhood teams?
This is Militia Wick-Glover, and I just wanted to caution us to say, well, I definitely appreciate making sure that we hear from communities. I hear from people in the community. I also want to say that having been here since 2003, we have gone, many groups have gone into communities many times and asked the same questions over and over, and we're not moving forward. And I think we need to just be cautious about not falling victim to analysis paralysis. It's not that we don't know what needs to be done. The question is, we need to get to the point where we are pushing past continuing to ask the same questions over and over, and actually making moves to make a difference, to actually change things. And that's policy, systems, and environments. People talked about poverty, that's getting jobs in the community. I don't know. And if there are things that we still don't know that would help to move us forward, those are the questions that we need to ask. And Councilman Taylor, you mentioned that there were some things, you went in the community, you were able to start some things and they didn't continue. That is a pattern. And so what is causing those things not to continue? Because we can't continue to just analyze and collect data and analyze and collect data, because people are dying while we are analyzing and collecting data. And so if collecting more information is going to move us past something we don't already know, then great. But I think we know what needs to happen. We are just not doing it. And that's something that we have to look at within ourselves and as a city and as a community to understand, why are we not taking the actions that need to be taken?
But Ms. Wick-Glover, this is a step and an action to solve the problems that we're all discussing. And in no way am I saying that the committee should take my suggestion or the actual community suggestion. I'm saying, hey, let's take this thing slow. Let's put forth the suggestions that you have. Let's listen to the suggestions that others have. And let's make one informed decision, because we may not get another chance at this with the funding that we have for the next few years. And we've got to measure 10 times and cut once. I'm just asking that we be careful, hear all sides, and make the appropriate decisions accordingly. But I think we have common ground.
Okay, this is Kanika Brown. So I would just send an email to you, Councilman Taylor, and to you, Patrice, and go from there. Okay. To keep it short, because I know we have another agenda coming up.
Thanks for hearing this out, and I take you all seriously, and we will make sure that your comments are heard, and we'll do the right thing. So thanks everybody for being here. Allow me to say a couple of words. So thanks for what you're doing for the city.
Thank you, Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay. So now moving on to some of the other projects that were submitted. As I mentioned before, people submitted their ideas through the Google form. I know there are other ideas out there that have been yet received, and so we're going to allow for more time for other submissions. So the first one, let's see, was submitted was a contingency support for virtual learning. This was under the umbrella of social justice and submitted by Debbie Hunter and Rennie Pitt from the West Ward. So Mr. Pitt, if you would like to give a few highlights of your proposal.
Thanks, Patrice. That's really a continuation of some of the comments that we made earlier, and to address our concern about the need for tutors and for educational assistance for some of the marginalized and low-income children in our community. In addition, we suggested that collaboration could be made possibly with some of the churches, Kids Cafe, for example, and other organizations that currently exist, that we could fund tutors that would come in that would help these children that are identified. And how they're identified, I don't know at this point, but I did speak, and Patrice, as you know, I sent a follow-up recommendation, which is consistent with this, involving the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. And what they're doing is trying to expand the tutoring to these same children. And their concern is the same as ours with this need for tutoring and assistance with remote learning. And they had indicated that they had originally done only an after-school program. I know the Kids Cafe was at night because I was involved with that. But it seems to me we need to find some way to expand the effort to assist these young children in their learning and the manner in which they are learning in the community today. And that's the thrust of our proposal.
Okay, so you heard essentially two proposals. One is for the Salvation Army, to support Salvation Army. They're requesting $125,000, and that is education and tutoring for children, mainly who are in poverty. The second request is to support virtual learning, and those are for the children who are falling behind due to not going back to school for the first 9 weeks. That will be virtual, and providing some level of support related to supporting those children. Does anybody have any comments or input related to those two project ideas?
This is London McKinney. So with the Boys and Girls Club, would that be at both facilities that money would be allocated for this purpose?
I think it depends on what we want to have happen. Our concern is making sure that how these children are identified and wherever they are located in terms of their needs, is that we would ask the Salvation Army to address it. Because if we are going to fund the tutors or suggest that we fund the tutors, it seems to me we've got to make darn sure that the children that we intend to benefit are definitely benefited. And I don't know how the Salvation Army identifies these children. Is it through in conjunction with the school system? I just don't know. Maybe somebody on the call knows, but I don't.
I have a little understanding, cursory understanding about how children are going to be identified. This is Christy Robinson. There was money given to the school district. I believe it was $900,000, and they are implementing the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School are implementing CARES employees and CARES teams in every school in the district. And the teachers are the first line of defense, and if they're unable to participate in virtual learning, then the students will be identified and directed to the CARES teams, and the CARES teams will go out and make home visits and make assessments on that. I would appreciate some input from Vice Chair Pettigrew on our funding and our cause and how the direct purview of this committee in relation to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and I'd appreciate some feedback on that as well.
I think in one of our previous, it may have been our most recent meeting, I believe. Yeah, Patrice shared, some thoughts about the purview of city services in particular, because this is coming from the city budget, and that anything that happened with the school system would either go to an agency that serves students in the school system, or we figure out some kind of partnership between an agency and the school system, other things to where the funding would go. As I shared in the last meeting, my primary concern about anything that would serve students in particular right now is that by the time we have an opportunity to make our recommendations, the first quarter will be over. And I think we'll be 7 or 8 weeks into the first quarter at that point. And so of course, I think we all have a wondering of whether virtual learning might continue after the first quarter, which is something none of us know at this point. I think we can make some assumptions, but we don't know for certain. At that point, I think it would be interesting to have resources available for something like this. But I think there are so many things that are currently unpredictable about the school schedule and how things will go, that I can honestly say I just don't know. That's the kind of balance I'm trying to strike, is between being effective with our dollars based on the timeline we're granted, but also realizing that any recommendations we make can be approved by council in part or in whole. So I think there are just all of those things to consider, because I think it's an area we definitely need to address.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so after this meeting and after we review everything, I'll combine, and I'll wait on a few others to submit, but I'll combine a full list so you all can weigh in via email on projects that you are favoring and maybe not favoring, or any comments. So the next submission was from Dr. Josh Canzona. He could not attend today's in a retreat at his school. But he suggested a seed funding expansion program. So what that means is the city each year, through our nonprofit community agency process, we offer seed funding to grassroots organizations who may not check off all of the eligibility for full funding. So these are usually grassroots or new startups. he's suggesting that we earmark $100,000 for seed agencies that apply through our process that fit within the social justice or anti-poverty umbrella of sorts. And so this funding he's suggesting would be spread out over, I think, 5 years. And each year through that process, if agencies apply and fit into that category, that pot of money is designated for those agencies. The second proposal he has submitted was related to historical markers. So the city currently has a historical markers program. He's suggesting that we earmark $25,000 to add 10 additional historical markers in the community. So these markers would emphasize African-American history and milestones and any ongoing struggle of racial justice in our community. He's also proposing that an additional $7,500, which would be 5 $1,500 grants, would be earmarked for any educators in the school system, K through 12 educators who would use the markers to develop a curriculum around explaining and educating children about these historic markers in the community. So the total amount of that would be $32,500. Mr. Pitt, did you have a comment on that, or did I hear someone?
Excuse me, I was clearing my throat.
Okay. All right. Does anyone want to comment on that particular project? The third recommendation from Josh is about public transportation improvements. He stated that he reviewed the entire poverty thought force and that there were some underlying themes related to transportation among all of the categories. He suggested that there be a subsection of this committee to meet with local transportation experts to discuss piloting some kind of transportation proposal. He also raised some questions about should we add money to the bus match distribution program, which the city already does. That program, the city provides bus passes to nonprofits, and then they give them to people most in need. He also talked about making the bus schedules and routes a little bit more visible in the community, and expanding routes to affordable housing areas and more consistent routes. So that was the third option. There's no dollar amount to that. This was more, I believe, about developing a plan and speaking with transportation staff on making the transportation system a little bit more efficient for people. Okay, so the next proposal was submitted by Greg Beyer and Christy Robinson. The title of the project is Broadband Internet Access Expansion, and they are on the call, so if you could give us some an overview of this proposal.
Hello, this is Christy Robinson. I'm going to present on behalf of Greg and myself, and Greg, please hop in if I misspeak in any way. After doing research and speaking to community groups both within and outside of our ward, we believe that broadband internet is an incredibly important community equity issue, that access to the internet is no longer a luxury, it's a public good and a necessary part of Winston-Salem's infrastructure. Citizens cannot participate in public school currently, schedule health appointments, check health records, build social capital through online connections, or look for a job without internet access. And thousands of families in low-income neighborhoods in Winston-Salem are not able to execute these essential elements of life on a daily basis. We believe that having highly accessible, affordable broadband infrastructure is critical for impacting poverty and social justice in our community. The City of Winston-Salem has already started some of this process and realized that this is important to our city as well. As stated on the city webpage, they've deployed the city has deployed free Wi-Fi throughout our community in some rec centers, 4th Street, and a variety of other places to prepare the workforce and our children for the next generation of computing. That was a direct quote. The city recognizes this imperative infrastructure and, quote, Wi-Fi helps promote job growth, provide free internet access for our children, and assist them with educational needs, to help bring the nation together through social media and more. Other communities in America are doing this already. We studied a few models that we could pull from instead of reinventing the wheel here in Winston. Hartford, Connecticut just announced that their plan to build free city Wi-Fi, despite the fact that they already have 97% accessibility. That's something that we are much lower on in Winston-Salem and believe that we urgently need to do the same. The mayor said that this project is about bridging the digital divide, fighting educational equity, expanding economic opportunity to every neighborhood. Internet connectivity, again, is not a luxury. It's an essential part of learning, earning, and living today. We saw an incredible and critical negative impact and the lack of digital access across thousands of children in the spring that were unable to access the internet. And the superintendents across the state, on multiple calls I've been in, have been requesting that cities please take up this call that the individual school districts are limited on their use of resources and funding, and to get technology and students into students' home is all they can handle right now, not to lead the charge for systemic change of the citizens being able to access internet. We think this project would also be an excellent candidate for a public-private cooperation. Our corporate citizens and foundations may well be able to provide expertise and equipment and also give instruments out to the community, such as Chromebooks and mentoring, to support all the community, particularly the lowest income and most vulnerable in our community.
Thank you, Christy. Does anyone have any comments?
I just have one question. This is Kwamika Shavers. I thought that broadband was a state and a federal funding issue, and now that public schooling is taking the virtual route and we are unsure as to if students will even go back to school in the physicality the remaining of the fall semester, isn't that something that will be addressed by other organizations? They have to fund that now because students have to learn from home without internet access. It's no way they can do that.
I'm not entirely clear of what you're asking, but the research that I've done and looked at is that while this would be wonderful if it was a state or a federal issue to supply broadband internet throughout our country, that's been happening on the city level. And so far, our city has been the one that has started the process, as I mentioned, with the few areas so far in Winston-Salem. And so I'm not totally clear. I know that Mr. Pettigrew, the vice chair, has said that we don't want to directly deal with education, but as I stated in our proposal, we do not believe that this critical infrastructure is solely an education issue. Education is just one of the things affected by lack of broadband, and that we believe that this is a community equity issue across multiple platforms, across healthcare, across education, across building social capital within our community, and many others, especially access to the job internet and being able to locate jobs and apply for them, that this would impact more than just the students involved, though that they would also benefit from this infrastructure build.
Yeah, this is, I would just add that there are things being done right now, but they're very spotty. They're taking children to disadvantaged places instead of in their home. Many people believe the structure of work is changing permanently with COVID, and our impoverished neighborhoods will be at serious disadvantage for employment. And it's time to look at this, I would say, just like public transportation. It needs to be highly accessible, particularly to our most impoverished neighborhoods.
And to add on what Greg said, I spoke to a English language learner teacher at a local school, and she was telling me about one particular student that she sees his instance happening over and over, that he was not able to access public education, but also healthcare because of his connectivity. He had tried for 2 different hotspots given from the school district. They were both incompatible and would not consistently provide connectivity. And so if a teacher just has 30 minutes to work with a student to provide mental health care or a healthcare appointment or to receive lessons, and 25 of those minutes are spent working with connectivity issues, then those students end up falling further and further behind. And that same with the job interview, if that were to happen, this lack of we think that this committee is charged. We're trying to envision, as Vice Chair Pettigrew said, ways to impact the infrastructure of the city, and we believe this is an instance where that could be improved.
Christy, this is Rennie Pitt. Let me ask this question: when you and Greg did the canvassing of where the Wi-Fi was in the rec centers, do you recall where they were? Are they in the what I call the more impoverished areas where we would need tutoring, for example?
I have tried to get to the bottom of that. Excellent question. I've spoken to our city council member, Jeff McIntosh, and he didn't have the exact list of where this Wi-Fi was currently being deployed, though his belief was that the rec centers were in parts of Winston that had less internet accessibility currently, but he didn't have a full list to give me, and that's something that we can look into more.
I think that would be good, and then possibly in conjunction with the tutoring effort that we suggested, which would be wonderful to me. But thank you.
Yes, thank you.
This is Melissa Whitclever. I just also wanted to say, I think that what you're proposing has implications not only for K through 12 students, but we also need to remember that we have 2 colleges, universities here, plus community colleges. And last spring, when I was still teaching at Winston-Salem State, we had several students when we went to shelter at home who could not access college classes because they didn't have connectivity. So, and many of them live locally. The other thing that I'll say is this also impacts teachers. So some of our faculty at Winston-Salem State, but also some teachers in the school system, did not have ability to connect from home when they had to shelter at home. Many of them had been getting by going to, either working late or going to public places. And so if you're also thinking not only of the students that are impacted, but the people that are delivering the education, this would impact them as well. So.
Yes, I think that's a really excellent point as to upper education. We have such a wealth of universities in this area, and their learning is critical as well.
Thank you. Excellent report. The next project that was submitted is from Kanika Brown and Charlene Simmons. There is really a 3-part to their recommendation. So Ms. Brown or Ms. Simmons, would you like to review some highlights of your project ideas?
Yes, so Ms. Simmons isn't available, but I do have Susan on the line. Susan, are you here?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, could you start off with the technology part and I'll go into the other 2 parts?
Absolutely. I have a document. If you click on the chat button down at the bottom of your screen, there is a link to the document that I'll be going over very quickly because I know that we are pressed for time. I am proposing on behalf of Ms. Brown and Ms. Simmons a technology academy. This would be a collaboration between BGeek Technology Academy, and it would be serving the Easton Elementary School, Forest Park Elementary School, and Philo Hill Middle School, all of which are the schools that are in the Southeast Ward. The partnership would be between BGeek, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, which includes their administration, their technology administration, the CARES Act team, the principals at each one of those schools. The budget that I am suggesting for this would be $100,000 to be paid in quarterly installments after periods of assessment. So $25,000 per quarter. And then if the program is starting to show growth or success within the students, then the next allotment of funding would be given. The program summary is technology literacy has never been more important as schools as we moved on to online learning. Students who attend Easton Elementary, Forest Park Elementary, and Philo Hill enter school at a proficiency deficit, and more than 70% are economically disadvantaged. This partnership would allow for dedicated instruction and enrichment to students in the form of digital literacy and integration of core subjects that are meeting the North Carolina Education Standard Course of Study. We have received preliminary approval from of the partnership with the parties mentioned above, which is BGEEK and Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. And BGEEK will have a curriculum in place at the beginning of the program. In this document that I have linked to you, and if you are unable to see it, I do have some school report card data from these 3 schools. Easton, 32% of the students entering kindergarten are proficient. 71% of students in the school are economically disadvantaged. They received a school score for the 2018-19 academic year of F. Forest Park Elementary received a D score. 33.7% of their students entering kindergarten are proficient. 71% of the students in the school are economically disadvantaged. Philo Hill Middle School also received a grade of F. Unfortunately, 10.4% of students entering 6th grade are proficient. So if you look at that number from 33.7% from Forest Park, 32.9% from Easton Elementary, both of those are feeder schools to Philo Hill. So they are actually losing 20% of proficiency between leaving elementary or beginning elementary and entering middle school. 72.4% of the students in the school are economically disadvantaged. School performance grades are given by the state of North Carolina. It's based on academic achievement and on academic growth. Here are some numbers that I received from the Chief Equity and Accountability Officer from Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. It gives the enrollment of each school. And then, so Easton, 571 students at the school. The number of students, student principals reported that did not engage during the spring closure, so when they closed for COVID, was 97 students, or 17%. Forest Park Elementary, the enrollment is 632 students. Number of students that did not engage during the spring closure was 53 at 8.4%. At Philo Hill Magnet Academy, 549 students are enrolled. 135 did not participate in the final quarter when they went virtual, which is 24.6% of their student body. So the grand total between all 3 of those schools is 16.3% of students in the Southeast Ward did not participate in education during the 4th quarter. BGEEK was founded as a nonprofit organization in 2015 by Dr. Elrod Morris II. He has a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in management information systems from Winston-Salem State University and a master's of computer applications and information technology, also from Winston-Salem State. He is a systems engineer, and currently his full-time job is as a engineer, computer engineer at Inmar. The Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System, so as a nationally recognized leader in cybersecurity, Dr. Morris offers innovative honeycomb curriculum, includes a comprehensive learning suite of how to read, create, interpret media, to reproduce data, images in digital environments, evaluate, successfully engage in multiple technology formats. As far as Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, I spent last week speaking with a variety of their team members. In this program that we are presenting, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools will provide the Chromebooks and hotspots, which are those internet hotspots, so that the children will have access to internet to the students at Easton, Forest Park, Philo Hill. Impacted by COVID-19 and the decision of the school board to suspend all in-person gatherings of students, this will be a virtual program for at least the first quarter of the academic year. I know that Mr. Prendergast mentioned that this is not possible for first quarter, so I am going to see if there is a possibility through some private investment for the first quarter to have this program start. My partners at Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools are Effie McMillan, Executive Director of Equity, Access, and Acceleration, Marty Creech, the Director of Digital Teaching and Learning, and Andrew Kraft, Chief Equity and Accountability Officers. School principals have not been involved in the conversation yet. Their focus right now is on starting schools, but if this program is selected to go forward, then we would obviously get them involved as soon as possible. My organization is Agile City. I am a former Winston-Salem Forsyth County teacher, and I'm the Managing Director of Entrepreneurship. I will be doing the oversight of the program's collaboration between BeatGeek and Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and I will be responsible for the program management and execution of the program and provide the program's benchmark reporting and success metrics.
Ms. Morris,
yes.
If you've got some final comments, we just for sake of time, this will be emailed out to the committee so they can review it in detail. So if you just want to do some wrap up comments, that would be
okay.
Was that it?
Is that it from you, Susan?
That's all.
Okay.
I included how it addresses both poverty and social justice at the end of the report, so that can be read and emailed.
Great. Thank you so much. Excellent.
Okay, and so the second two parts I have is a handicap facility part. Winston-Salem does not have one. The only place that has a handicap facility is King, and that is an issue. I don't know why we don't have one. Definitely discrimination to me. The handicap, they need a park. They need a place where they have a braille there. They need a place where they have the rocking ship bladder, the ramps, everything they need for handicapped people. It needs to be here in Winston-Salem instead of people have to go to King, because that's where we take my child and some of their friends that are handicapped. We don't have a handicap facility here in Winston-Salem. The second part is, I'm just going to keep it short. The second part is that we're dealing with is the Learn and Lunch project we want to do. It's more than just a feed-in site program. We're going to have motivational coaches that are going to come online between 1 and 3, and people can download or upload their message, to get motivated. They're going to be talking about jobs. We're going to have jobs available. We're going to have people on there from Goodwill, from various agencies talking about who's hiring, what's available, where you can take classes at. And it's basically just trying to give the people some hope and get them out of poverty. And I'm gonna keep it short at that part, because you have the rest of it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to the City of Winston-Salem Internship and Mentorship Program. This was submitted by Damon Davenport of the North Ward.
Yes, I hope everyone's doing well today. My program description is it's very similar. It's going to be very similar to the program in Charlotte that they have. I believe it's called the Mayor's Youth Employment Program. I'm really adding on a mentorship piece as well. So it will be a 6-week paid virtual or in-person internship and mentorship program for minorities ages 16 to 24, within the city of Winston-Salem. The internship portion will provide participants with the opportunity to work at a private, public, or nonprofit organization within the city and develop their career skills, along with find their work areas of interest. Participants will also be paired with a local mentor who helps with professionalism in the workplace, provides future employment opportunities, guidance, and just helps with other work-related skills. And then there will be there will be a graduation portion at the end of that as well. This kind of goes off of individuals I've talked to within my area and around my area about not having the skills required for certain jobs, and also not knowing, like some of the youth that I've talked to and worked with before, they don't really know where they want to go, don't really know what they want to do. This will give them kind of practical career experience. And since we have already a model in Charlotte that has been successful, at least with the internship portion, this could be something that could also succeed in Winston-Salem for the youth.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport. The next idea submission is from Quamika Shavers for an African American museum.
Yes, good afternoon. Again, I'm going to keep it short as well because I know it will be emailed out. But the idea was around funding to support an enterprise for empowerment of all of our community to establish a local Black Heritage Center. The museums that have begun to position their work in organizations towards social justice, inclusion, and resolving historical trauma. The museum would be called the Museum as a Site for Social Justice Association of African American Museums. So it would be named Mass Action. Black museums and cultural centers are known for cultural pride, voice of validation, and community resource. So basically it would present the opportunities for think tanks, historical exhibits, community conversations, being able to branch other organizations in the community that are doing very similar work, but need more access, need more resources, need more opportunities to provide this to a greater number of individuals in our community. The asking estimate cost of this would be $250,000. We already have a building, 510 Trade Street. It is across the street from the Winston-Salem Transit Center, so it's right downtown. I feel like in the center, easy accessible to individuals from the north, east, and a little bit close to the South Ward. Basically, this would be an investment into our community, an investment to give. I know when I was younger, I had a lot of programs throughout the YMCA that I was able to participate in for free. And this would be another year-round running program, partnering with other organizations in the community to give our children something to do, to give them something to have pride in within Forsyth County. And to be just like the nucleus for other organizations to partner with us and to bring fruitful programs to the community.
Okay.
That's all.
Great.
May I say something?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kiana Terry. I wanted to speak on Ms. Shaver's idea. I think that was a great idea. And also I wanted to bring up how that proposal could also offer job opportunities within the community as well. And I feel like that would be really good for younger people to be able to educate other younger people as well. So I think that would be a good idea as well.
Thank you, Kiana. You just reminded me. It was myself, Kiana Terry.
No problem.
And Francis, who we all got on a call and we talked about this and we talked about how we could create an idea that was multifaceted and not just one-angled. So how would we also try to attack social justice and also some of the climate issues in our community, one of them being gun violence as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just for the record, yes, I wanted to make sure Kiana Terry is on the call just for the record, and Dr. Militia Witt Glover just for attendance purposes. Sam Hickerson just called me. He lost power, so he was disconnected from the call. But thank you all for all of the reports that have been submitted thus far. If you have not submitted your report, we are giving you a little bit more time. Once I get all of the reports in, me and my staff will try to put some costing information, some budget numbers beside it if possible, and then we'll send out an entire full list of all of the projects for you all to weigh in on, possibly to vote, but we'll figure that out before the next meeting. So thank you all, and at this time I will turn it over to Vice Chair Pettigrew.
Thank you all. As Patrice has already said, we will extend the deadline to submit program or project ideas using the Google form for one more week. And after our August 27th meeting, we will begin sharing our proposed project ideas with the community for public input using social media, the city's website, and other networks that any of us may be connected to. On September 10th, we will have a virtual public input forum in lieu of our regular meeting, where members of the community can make comments and weigh in on the project proposals. We will provide more information about the public forum at the next meeting. And then on September 24th, the last step will be to vote on the final $1 million recommendation package that will be submitted to the mayor and city council for consideration. So those are our next steps. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Our next meeting will be Thursday, August the 27th, 2 p.m. If there is no other business, this meeting is hereby adjourned. I look forward to seeing you all then. Be safe and well.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.